can tell you right now that Mike Lindell was telling you the absolute truth, Pete. So you can take that to the bank, because what he's doing is there were limitations on what he could share at the cyber symposium. And we learned this after the fact because we tried to clean up those packet captures to where we didn't run afoul of federal law, because there was security clearances. You can't, when we talk about having recordings of before, during, and after an election, and you've got 37 terabytes and it covers 3,009 counties, that includes access to passwords. And you can't just send out passwords to your hacking crew. Now, so I don't know if they quite war game the entire what that would look like, but if you start scrubbing and removing the passwords and trying to clean up the packet captures, your hackers are going to say, wait a minute, this looks inauthentic, because people have been cleaning them up. So there was a very tough position that Mike was in, because you have to realize that we had FBI informants, and I think we touched on this before, that they were waiting for us to share something that didn't pass the sniff test because of security concerns, and they had arrest warrants ready for Mike. All right, so that was the reality. So we had to make adjustments, but to affirm that Mike was telling you the truth, and this is part and parcel to the lawsuit strategy, is that Mike shows up to the various secretaries of state, the attorney generals, and Dr. Douglas Frank has accompanied him on several of these trips, and they're saying, okay, you don't believe me that there was massive cyber fraud in your elections? Here are your passwords. Now, these are passwords presumably that they thought only they had access to. And here, the MyPillow saint is showing them their own passwords. I know for a fact that that's happening. And then he has their attention. And then they can show them the packet captures in a way where there's confidence, and they can see the severity. So they know that Mike knows what's up, and they've got to get on the right side of history. So I have a degree of confidence that these lawsuits in the dozen or so states that Mike has gone to, that there's some momentum there. And I hope and pray that we'll get justice. But yeah, the fact that it's being initiated not by Mike Lindell, but from the attorney generals is a big thing. And I think they've slated that to be done the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And what was going on right there real time was the American voter was overwhelming that algorithm, and Youngkin squeaked by. The question is, why did the deep state allow Youngkin to come through? Because they could have, that's Virginia, that's my snapshot there. On New Jersey, it's worse. It's bad there. We actually had evidence, and I think the Gateway Pundit reported on this, of 56 machines that were basically decommissioned before the votes were counted. So things were looking good for the Republican. They weren't going to allow it. And next thing you know, we started seeing all kinds of the same stuff that we saw a year ago. The one person that has been vocal in affirming that this has to be held up is Clarence Thomas. I mean, he was one of the folks that in the dissenting opinion basically said, look, these questions over election fraud have to be resolved.
They do.
And so, you know, the fact of the matter is that now that we have Rasmussen polls that are showing 56% of the country has no faith in our elections.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully they'll be more receptive, because they know this problem isn't going away.
But by the way, I don't want to go off into the weeds on this one. Did you read the indictment, the latest Durham indictment on Deripaska?
I did.
I read that thing and I said, it obliterates the Russia collusion hoax. And Hillary Clinton, and my assessment was that the Mueller investigation was used to cover up for Hillary Clinton, who literally colluded with the Russians. Correct? This massive.
I think you're right. And I'm encouraged, because for someone who has prosecuted cases and you start trying to move the pieces of the board, Durham appears to be very strategic on who the first arrests are. And you had that with Sussman, and now you have the latest indictment. But both of these gentlemen have fingertips tied to so many different players, whether it's Hillary, whether it's Mark Elias, Perkins Coie, that whole infrastructure. Now there's an in.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see where he goes, but there needs to be dozens, if not hundreds, of arrests.
Yes.
So we're all waiting for more.
Yes.
There's a lot going on. I agree with your assessment, like right now, that we need to overwhelm and the algorithms and be involved, be hyper vigilant. But I'm also of the mind, Pete, that I don't know how long I want to do this. And what I mean by that is the biggest fix for an election in 2022, in 2024, isn't to keep telling people to overwhelm algorithms.
That's
It's
right.
to get justice. It's to get people arrested,
Yes.
prosecuted, and if need be, because the remedy or the sanction for treason is death, we need to see executions. And I don't say that lightly. What I'm
No.
saying is that what has happened to our country has been such a foundational game changer that if we don't start experiencing some wins in the justice column, all of this other stuff is just busy work. And so I'm saying, yes, get involved, continue to do what you're doing, red pill as many folks as you can, but this is not sustainable. We have to experience justice. And I'm hoping that some of the developments that we're seeing with John Durham, another arrest that we had most recently with the Steele dossier, is evidence that we're on our way.
What I'm telling you is this: go in and vote. I've looked at the voter histories after an election cycle, and your votes are being dropped, deleted, and switched. So you can go in there and say, I went in there, I got it done. But until you understand that the software can change things, and we found the cheat that the voter history files, there's an instrumentation where we're seeing marking in the actual files. Found it in Michigan, found it in New Mexico, they found it through the work of Dr. Jerome Corsi in Ohio and New York, where there's a cryptology algorithm where they're actually notating and changing things. They actually know how to do it one time. So if you catch it one time and you go in checking how your voter history is and you see there's a problem, they'll say, oh, it's an honest mistake. They'll fix it. And then they'll never touch your history again. So we have seen that. It's so sophisticated. So the frustrating thing that I have to deal with is that there is an assumption that your vote is guarded by virtue of you going in and submitting your fractionalized, manipulated data point. So that's all it is. And that's not an argument against same-day voting. What I'm saying is that your best option out of many flawed pathways is deprive bad actors of all the metrics they need to screw you over. So your best outcome on November 5th is all those F curves that you saw in the film. You force them to create that in every state. Everyone sees it. Because mark my words, you may not like what I'm telling you right now. They will double down on the mail-in ballots. They will double down on the machines. Those F curves, those reboots are going to happen. Mail-in ballots are going to flood the system like never before on steroids. They're going to call the race to the captured media for Kamala. And if you're not prepared for that, God help you. So what I came here today is to give you a weapon to understand and discern all the different exploits so you can expose it, challenge it, withhold. And if you do this strategically in enough states, the swing states, Trump, they'll have to cut their losses. That's what they did in 2016, by the way. They had the same software machines in 2016. What happened there? They didn't have the mail-in ballot infrastructure in place to have the paper trail. And so they had to back off of the cheat, and that's how Trump got in 2016. 2020, through the COVID pretext, they gave asylum to basically say, vote from home, it's safe to vote through mail. They adopted it, and they had the paper trail. It's going to be the same thing. That's going to be way worse. So that's why I'm telling you, look, I'm not saying that you're not going to have issues, but at least you can see them. If you adopt the early voting thing, you're going to think, I hope my vote counted. And it's actually what the FBI is telling you to do. Never vote the way the FBI tells you to vote. That's all I got to say. All respect to Dan Bongino. I think he's a good guy, but none of these people have talked to the experts that we have inside. And these aren't chumps. These are the best of the best. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why Turning Point, Charlie Kirk, and these people won't listen to a Jeff Lindbergh that literally was the guy that's on the joystick that brings down your satellites in suborbit. These are billion-dollar assets. Calls up the general, says your toy is safe. Why won't they talk to someone like him? And I'll tell you why. There's a pastor's conference in Nevada. Charlie Kirk was asked about the machines. He said, I have seen no evidence that the machines play a role. And to back him up, he says, I've got a tech expert here. What do you think? And he asked a guy by the name of Robert List, who was the former governor of Nevada back in the 80s. And if you look at what Robert List is doing now, he's a lobbyist and attorney for Dominion.
Wow.
Ron DeSantis, another guy that everyone loved until you found out he was having lunch with Libby Locke, another attorney for Dominion. So, look, I know people just hate it. It's like, man, I like Charlene, I like this person, that's my person. I'm not here to piss you off. Trust me, it doesn't help me. I'm just telling you right now that I care more about like what my wife and my kids think than being accepted by the conservative clubs.
Woo!
It's not going to change. You're not going to win unless you eliminate bad actors and bad processes. The mechanical machines, like so clerks that are honest would tell you that the best systems, the further you go back in time, the better they are.
Mm-hmm.
So those turn lever machines, those are mechanical machines, are better than the digital machines that we use in 2000 on. However, but even then, to answer your question, there's a way to file down one of the gears to where the rollover to the thousandth vote doesn't track. So as long as you could guarantee someone has more than 1,000 votes, there's ways to manipulate that. But that's much harder. So you have to think in terms of levels of fraud. Level 1 is where a voter commits fraud, votes an extra ballot they shouldn't. Level 2 is a person with a position of trust that abuses that trust in the back doors like Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, and they commit fraud. Level 3 is what I'm here for. It's a nation-state subversion where someone accesses a software and they can do things independent of anyone downstream. And if we solve that, you'll have Trump, you'll have Carrie Lake, you'll have all of these wonderful people. If we can get back to the old school union intimidation fraud of the 50s and 60s, I'll take it 10 times out of 10. But yes, there was a way to subvert even the mechanical machines. Okay, so I'm really good at bursting people's bubbles. I'm gonna do it again. You opened up with a great question on Mike Lindell and Cyber Symposium. I'm telling you, like, as a trial attorney, I don't just wish that things are the way that someone presents it. I'm telling you right now, the machines are subverted stateside by our own government behind our own precinct firewalls. That does not fly with the PCAP migration. Now, the affidavit that was submitted by a person out of Italy with the Leonardo SPA satellite system, I've seen it. Here's the problem. The affidavit's not filled out by the quote-unquote whistleblower. It's filled out by his attorney.
Wow.
Anyone that's ever looked at an affidavit in America, it's got to be based on your personal attestation, meaning a sworn affidavit that I'm filling out on your behalf would not pass muster in a court anywhere. Maybe Italy's got a different system. So that's question number 1. Number 2, when I talk to nation state experts on the easiest way to subvert, they sit there going, wait a minute. Having your results go overseas and have it coming back in, it's like, these are all black hat experts. Like, that's just not the way that we do it. It's not to say that they couldn't do it, but I think my instinct, and I could be wrong, I can't validate this or verify it or dispute it. All I can tell you is that my instinct is that the elegant, simplest way is your own government, DHS, subverting the machines. And when folks come, it was Maria Zack that talked about the affidavit and shook Mr. Trump's hand saying, we've got him. I know that people were trying to get the so-called whistleblowers out of Spain and flown over here stateside, actually know the people that paid for the plane and tried to have them. It never materialized. So it leaves me in this position where I have to opine, wonder, speculate, but I can't validate. So this is my hope. This is kind of gets into the Q ultimate white hat stuff that I'm fascinated with, but I don't talk about it. I truly believe that Trump, as the guy who created Space Force, had the military capability to have packet captures. I don't think the fate of the Republic was in the hands of the My Pillow guy when Trump actually was the commander-in-chief. The question is, why wasn't that data presented to the American people?
Yes.
I think Trump knew that if he used a foreign interference executive order, which has been renewed, interestingly enough, every year of President Biden's administration, that he could have seized the machines, had the National Guard basically clear this up, but he would have lost because the greatest enemy was the media. And you'll notice from 2016 to 2020, what did the left do? They talked about the machines. Hillary did, Kamala did, all of them did. And they were anticipating that Trump in his hubris was going to use the machines and they could say, what did we tell you? There's a documentary from Harry Hurst called Kill Chain. We've been warning you about these machines for 4 years. Trump tampered with the machines. And then guess what he didn't do? He didn't touch the machines. And just like that, the radical left hoped to God that you never saw those videos ever again. They pulled all their experts off the speaking tour and they zipped their lips. So, I think we've had 4 years to be the most awakened that we've ever been on big tech, big media, big pharma. And Trump probably has access to resources, again, I'm just speculating, that at this point, I think the American people are ready to receive it. So if he would have done all those wonderful things in 2021, we would have not been ready as we the people to take the baton and actually self-govern.
Correct.
We weren't ready at all, and you know it. So is there a satellite structure? Great. Here's another thought, throw at you. Who runs Starlink? Elon. Do you know how much it costs to launch a satellite into outer space? Next question. Do you know how many thousands of satellites have been launched over the past 8 years? It's comparable to the Manhattan Project in the scope of funding.
Watched one go up.
Now internet's coming down in North Carolina. You know what's being offered?
Starlink.
Elon seems to be doing a really good job for President Trump. So I think this is about contingency plans. If something apocalyptic happens, if Starlink is left, Trump is there, perhaps all the things that I'm worrying about won't even be needed. But I don't get the debrief from the president. I'm trying to do my part of the military-civilian operation, if it exists, and I'm just talking to you. So I'm one of those guys that hopes Q is true, but I live my life as if it is not true because I need you all to get the baton. So, long answer. When you request the mail-in ballot, the system now has a running tally and can create the delta of what you have to overcome with fake ballots later. It's the requesting that actually engages with the machine software to work against you. Now, where he's right, having said all that I said, if you live in a state where you don't have a choice and you're sent a mail-in ballot, many states are opt-out, where you don't have a choice. You get a ballot whether you want one or not. Then I think the advice is sound. From that point on, hold on to it, keep it in its envelope, sealed, show up in person and vote it then. And so at that point, it's completely fine. But you're talking about California, Utah, Washington, Oregon. I don't know what it is in New York. But don't request it is my advice. Show up in person.
Is one of the reasons why they're so terrified of Trump. There's a certain amount of the stealing they can do. Let's imagine if it is dirty and you really can manipulate elections. How much can you manipulate by? Can you manipulate it by 30%?
To your point about how much can they cheat, I call that factor, which none of us can put a number on, I call it the cheat factor, the cheat margin. One of the things that I'm trying to convince people of is that it's not hopeless because they can cheat. It means that you have to succeed at a level that exceeds their capacity to erase it.
Does that seem right to you, that they can sort of figure out things perhaps, but that if it's overwhelming, that really will be the only sort of electoral way out of this?
I don't think that a ordinary 50.1 in traditional voting is going to be sufficient. I think we need a landslide, and a landslide minus some shenanigans is still going to be a victory.
How come RFK Jr. can't get on the primary? Just tell me. If this is a real democracy, you tell me
Yeah.
why this guy who's a Kennedy, who's an environmental attorney, even though he's got this voice issue, he's extremely articulate, very good speaker,
Yeah.
very good recall of controversial ideas, but who the doesn't have controversial ideas in the world of 2024? We want to know, why didn't RFK, why couldn't he get in the primaries?
Right.
Like, if this is real, if democracy is real, you guys don't just get to decide who runs your party against the will of the entire United States.
But they're experts.
Well, I don't remember what I said, but I have an idea. Joe Hoft is a dear friend of mine, and one of the leaders in actually scaling and getting the story of the Patriot voice out to the American people on a much larger platform. And so we're very, very indebted to him. But I think there was someone else, there's another gentleman that wrote an article on the movie The Patriots, kind of this movie with Mel Gibson back in the day. And I think me and Joe both admitted that it was actually not something that we were really big fans of at the time, because if you've seen Braveheart, you've seen a real cinematic achievement. And I think most movies in the aftermath of Braveheart, you're kind of expecting the same thing, or if it doesn't exceed that, then whatever. Well, that movie's actually aged. The Patriots actually aged quite well. And I think it's becoming more relevant because we're seeing parallels between now and the revolution. And many of us are hoping and praying that we wouldn't experience a violent revolution. But, you know, right now, let's not kid ourselves. We've got people that are languishing in jail for over 2 years for simply exercising the First Amendment right after witnessing what was objectively theft of the highest office in our country. Jake Lang is one of those individuals that has been in jail for over 2 years now. Never went inside the Capitol. In fact, he saved someone's life. Yet we have to silence someone like him. We have to keep him quiet because he affects the fake narrative that you've got a bunch of domestic terrorists if you happen to vote for Trump. So there's a lot of parallels between then and now. And I think that what we're experiencing right now is not post 1776. This is the decade prior to 1776, where you've got a bunch of people like me that are no names. And we're going around, you know, riding the circuit, trying to awaken people to their inheritance as image bearers of God. And your inheritance is to be free and to be free from arbitrary tyranny. And we're seeing arbitrariness, whether it's the jab, whether it's testing, whether it's having a license to braid people's hair. I mean, it's disgusting, the ways that we've been regulated to death. And our biggest enemy is the propaganda feed that we receive 24/7. And people they don't even have the wisdom to turn off the feed. They think they're getting news from Fox. They think they're getting news from Newsmax. I hate to break it to you, you're not really getting news from any of them. The best news source are people that have no agenda. So the citizen journalists. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities between then and now. I mean, the fashion's different, but the spirit is the same. And I think what people need to realize is that in the lead up to the revolution, we weren't talking about Americans. We were talking about British subjects. These were British subjects. And they tried every avenue peacefully, the olive branch petition, to be free of tyranny. And eventually that didn't work, but they kept moving forward and reclaiming real estate in the Liberty Department until the British got so unnerved that they were forced to commit violence. That's the shot heard around the world. And when that happened, the American people had a righteousness behind their cause that never left. And that was the birth of our country. And when you read the Declaration of Independence, that was a giant FU to King George. It was a giant declaration of nullification of any law that was not consistent with natural law and with God's ways. And we're trying to brush off the cobwebs and awaken people from, yes, folks, right now we are living in a time more perilous than the American founders. it is far more perilous. But the primary difference is that slavery back then was achieved through pain. It was achieved through the whip. And right now we are slaves through the exact opposite, through pleasure, through addiction to comfort, through distractions. And we can't even gather enough focus to achieve victory. That's our problem. So there's parallels, but there's a very, very different look at what slavery looks like. Back in the day, you had people literally in bondage, in physical chains. Now we've got enslavement taking place through these rigged machines that give us a lot of theater. It makes it look like we've got a voice because we got a sticker that says I voted, but nothing could be further from the truth. And as long as we're distracted and we're being told by our overlords that machines work just fine, go back and watch your Netflix video while we tax and take half of your income. That's a pretty good slave trade right there.
Oh.
And so we need to fight against it. So I guess I've had many red pill moments, and November 3rd, 2020 was like, eating the whole bottle. It's like, how many red pills do you want to eat? But I had run for higher office before and seen the ugly side of politics. As a prosecutor that oversaw 6 law enforcement agencies, I've been to crime scenes where, people were missing heads, kids were victimized. And you get threats from people that you put in jail that look for the day when they will be free, that they can end your life. And so we signed up for a very unusual life with me being a prosecutor. And so that prepared me. Regrettably, at November 3rd, 2020, I saw happening long before it happened. That's why I was ready to engage. So I've studied soft power communism. That was one of my academic areas that I was really interested in, seeing how people use propaganda and money and political influence to take over a culture without firing a single shot. And so it was weird that God prepared me in a way that everything I was interested in kind of gave me a warning. I think what caught everyone off guard was the rapidity of how quickly, when Team Evil decided to move, that they were able to just really go for the jugular. And I think at the culmination, if you were to ask me, wasn't even COVID, it was the George Floyd incident. I think at that point, that was the last trigger that was in place. So you had the pandemic, you had the George Floyd distraction where people started turning on one another. You were getting a narrative that in some cases it was okay to burn down your cities and throw explosive devices at courthouses, as long as you weren't a conservative or someone that professed to have traditional values. And then you had this elections run by health officials. You don't have to worry about following your election code or the statutes. COVID will kill you. So put a cardboard box over there because we want to block your view, or let's send people home because we need to have social distancing. So there was a combination of all kinds of factors. And honestly, November 3rd wasn't really the moment where I'm like, okay, I'm going to fundamentally change my life, because I wasn't on social media. No one knew who I was. I mean, what was I going to do? I just started tracking lawsuits and testing the claims. And I wasn't going on YouTube and telling anyone else. I was telling my wife, like, here's what's going on in Georgia. And then the next day would happen, like, here's the lawsuit in Pennsylvania. And next thing you know, after 2 months, I had done that to 56 lawsuits. And that's why when I told off my university president and did a video called Law Professor Response to Woke University, I made the claim that I've tracked all these lawsuits and they've all been dismissed on procedural grounds. Not one of them has looked at the evidence. But I'm still holding out hope that on January 6th, Congress would have done the right thing to have at least a 10-day inquiry, to send it back to the states to clean up this mess, to make sure that there was no question that if Biden, in fact, was the legitimate recipient of our legal votes, we were all sure and we can move forward as a country. And when you had the pretext of the Capitol breach entry, where the only way you can open the doors is from the inside, you've got Capitol Police moving barriers. I said, we're done. Like that was the fatality of the American People's Voice, because that was the last place where legally we were going to get justice. And so January 6th for me was different because I wasn't at the Capitol, but I was watching all of the live streams. And, my heart was broken because I'm like, I teach law at the time for a living. I tell people how great the Constitution is. And it was torn up and spat on that day in such theatrical ways, where you had Mitch McConnell and every other traitor betray the real president and go the other way. It was the most disgusting thing that I'd ever witnessed. And I knew that I had to do something. And that's a whole nother story on, I guess, what happened to me spiritually or internally to basically now make decisions going forward that would threaten my existence. From a standpoint of employment, I'm no longer employed. From a standpoint of practicing law, I've been investigated 5 times to strip me of my law license, and I'm still held in limbo. I've been told by the bar of my state that if I were to take on election integrity case, I can expect disbarment and being sanctioned. So the thing that I'm most passionate about, they've taken away from me from a standpoint of feeding my family. My reputation. If you Google my name, I am the poster boy for election denial, and I'll never have a professional career going forward unless we win this battle. So there's been virtually no self-preservation when you choose to do the right thing, and the right thing is to follow Christ. So I'm not doing this because I was a prosecutor. I'm not doing this because I'm a professor. I'm doing this because I'm a Christian. And I have to answer to an audience of one, and that has necessarily meant going to dark places and going to places and carrying my own cross. And my wife has had to do the same. We've got 3 small children. I've got a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old, and we're just doing the best that we can with the resources that we have, and we'll continue on until we either win or God calls us home. And so we saw a major victory in Shasta County, California, where patriots there defunded Dominion. They said, we're not going to pay for it. Kern County is on the cusp of hopefully doing the same thing. You have 15 boroughs in Alaska that got rid of Dominion. You have Esmeralda County, Nye County, Nevada getting rid of ES&S machines. The city of Milton in Georgia got rid of Dominion. So we're seeing victories, but they're hard fought for. And it's a ground up prescription. We need to stop sitting and playing patriot at a keyboard, waiting for a magic lawsuit to save us, waiting for Mike Lindell to save us, waiting for one state in the legislature to save us. That's not how this works. People can watch and pull for, by all means, do that. But you need to be involved in your own backyard. And if you can save your own county, we'll save the country. That's the prescription.
They've pushed a forensic audit to the point of it's going to happen in Pennsylvania. Other states, we have so many efforts out there by normal people who are setting down their household duties, their professional duties, they're risking their professional reputation. You know very well about that, being part of the academic assault. But you have got to get involved. It doesn't matter if you're doing something you think is big or you have 50,000 followers on social media. Like, you have got to get involved. If every single person upset about this country was involved locally, we would not be in this situation. So I believe that if everybody gets nose to the grindstone, and we get out there and work, we're going to expose the truth. And not only that, we're going to go to school boards and we're going to get rid of ineffective members that are poisoning the minds of our kids. We're going to get involved in our local councils. We're going to make changes locally. So even if the federal government is behaving outside of their constitutional boundaries, we're going to preserve free parts of society, because eventually, if you look at the fourth turning, society's going to turn over.
Wow.
There's going to be something coming this decade that is going to subvert the way we see everything going, and it's going to get rid of a lot of the doom and gloom. So you have to pick a positive outlook, figure out what you're good at, and just march forward and stop being afraid. All right, so if they cancel you, they cancel you. But I promise you, you don't want to have your retirement and your pension in a world, in a country that's governed like California is.
Wow. So you heard it here, folks. The lesson is do something.
whether it's small, do something.
Ultimately, what I want to impress upon you, that this is a numbers game. And until we master scaling numbers, you're not going to prevail. So many of you went to the symposium or wanted it hoping for those PCAPs to give you all the answers. I've got questions about those PCAPs and who provided them. I think that was a trap that was set for Mike. But God is amazing, because you know what happened? Tina Peters is a whistleblower. Showed up and took the forensic image of Mesa. Everyone was able to pivot to something that was rock solid. And we saw how Dominion created a secondary database out of nowhere through their trusted build. And we found out, and we could prove meticulously, that 29,000 records were altered or deleted in Colorado. Since then, we've actually refined our understanding of the cheat. So all I can say is Mike's heart of gold. He's been fighting the front on every battle conceivable. PCAPs are still up in the air. I am not of the mind that our machines are being subverted by China hacking them. All respect to Mike. I actually think it's far more elegant and far scarier, which is your Department of Homeland Security has entered into agreements, and they reside behind county and precinct firewalls. In other words, they don't even have to hack your machines. They live in the machines and can change whatever they want. And until I had that light bulb moment, oh my God, the very agency that's trying to get Trump killed and arrested have carte blanche control of your machines. It's all about creating a paper trail with those mail-in ballots to match what's going on in the machine. That's how the machines are being exploited. There's 1,000 different ways. There's not one way they're being exploited. No matter what you do, there's a different way to pivot around. So, long answer, but
Good question.
so it's one of those things where I want to applaud if it's a tool, but anytime someone's getting a foothold, and the prescription isn't to get rid of the machines and go to closed system architecture, but rather let's keep the machines, trust us with our software, we'll outcompete the bad guys, you're back to square one. Because now I have to place trust in the machine guys that have the source code that I don't understand. So what it does is it puts me in a position to place tremendous faith in a person, a product, and I have no way to audit their source code, their technology. And so I'm picking people that understand the technology, but are all in alignment with the prescription of we have to get rid of the machines. The people have to show up, and basically he retreats from this position. If you don't do that, I'm sorry, there's just no way that we're going to vote ourselves out of tyranny. Because you're not up against Democrats. You're up against a stroke of a key in software where there are voter ID numbers, and they can print out a mail-in ballot that's tied to the ID number. These people aren't even voting. Their IDs and the creation of a fake ballot is what's voting. And the reason why I'm against early voting is that if you don't show your hand at the poker table and tell everyone what you've got, it makes it infinitely harder for the bad guys to figure out the delta on what they have to overcome. So we promote voting in person on election day. It's a superior form of voting. If you can't do that, vote. So hear me out, vote. But I want you to treat that day like it's worth the inconvenience of waiting in line. Bring a lunch, take the day off. If you've got issues, because guess what? You will have issues, because the deep state has actually set up a psyop to convince you that you shouldn't vote in person on election day, because guess what? In Maricopa, what happened? The machines malfunctioned. Well, do you know that they were configured to malfunction? 60% of them in Republican-leaning precincts. Is that an argument for early voting, or is that actually an argument to get rid of the damn machines? So they're steering you to the most, or the least secure way of voting. And we think we're actually wise because we're not observing the psyop. So please make the best decision out of many poor pathways. What I'm telling you is right now you've got a providential moment where you can overwhelm the cheat to a degree, and you can do it because you've got someone like Trump, who is historically at the most popular zenith in his career. And he's going up against people that are the least popular candidates on planet Earth. It's because of this God-ordained moment, we may just have a chance to overwhelm the system, but don't supply the bad guys the metrics ahead of time. That's what the film showed you. Hundreds of thousands of ballots printed in New York, delivered to Pennsylvania. In Maricopa, they came up with ballots that were printed out of thin air. So you're not harvesting ballots, you're up against a high-speed printer. And these gentlemen don't want to tell you the truth. I think it's odd that people don't want to talk about the machines. And yet it's the engine that makes it all go. It's what optimizes the environment. In 1989, my dear friend, Pastor Ion Pea, who suffered under communism in Romania about a year ago, came to my house. And he could tell I was down. And he said, Professor Clements, I was there in Romania at the town square with armed guards, guns, you name it. And I saw communism fall in one day. The Spirit of God moved through the entire land. People threw down their guns. That's going to happen. It's going to happen much more quickly than you realize come November 5th. You will have clerks that mock you, that will say, my God, what have I done? Insulting my constituents. You're going to have doctors that jab your son who died of a heart attack saying, my God, what have I done? And it's going to happen by the thousands, if not millions. The question is, have you prepared the way to confront people with truth about their maladministration, that they will have the opportunity to say, I'm so sorry. I'm going to let God do the rest. But if you choose with wisdom to aggregate, get your numbers, and proclaim with authority, you will win. Every victory we've had against mandates wasn't done because of someone like me. It was a bunch of pissed off moms that showed up by the hundreds. And you know what happened? Freedom. Can you consider doing something like that when it comes to the great slave master? Because it doesn't matter what you care about, whether it's babies, Bibles, or bullets. That's all downstream from this black box. You don't conquer this problem, you can continue with your theater. You can go through the motions. Maybe it's too big for you. But that's why this is called the Gideon 300. Those are warriors. Warriors are willing to die for what they believe in. I'm willing to die for this message, for my daughter. It's not courageous, this isn't bold talk. I'm telling you right now, they are coming after all of us. So I stand before you not as a leader, not as an influencer, but as a servant that's had a vision. And what good is it if I get my job back if I don't have a country? What good is it if I get restored and my bank account gets full if I don't have a country? So many of you looking at me like I'm a hero or I've jumped off a cliff. And I'm here to tell you tonight, all of you have fallen over that cliff with me. Some of you just don't know it yet. And yes, I'll go splat before you do. But unless we turn this around in the next 30 days, it's over. But if it's discretionary, if there's an option to fill out that form or not, it tells me there's discretion. This is a courage equation. So the way that you deal with corruption is always courage. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to affirm that I don't have no doubts that you guys can't come up with a million obstacles that you've either encountered. And what I can tell you is that you can't have fear entering into your thinking. So the gentleman here says, I don't think we're going to get rid of the machines by November. Okay. So what does that leave me with? It leaves me with the scenario that you will get what you work for. And if you don't work towards getting rid of machines in the next 30 days, you're just putting it off. So I want you to think of this as a foundation. Ask any builder, if you don't get the foundation right, plaster cracks, the roof leaks, And I'm telling you, you will not have a foundation that works for elections unless you have closed system architecture. Otherwise, you're on quicksand. And we're all moving around trying to address all of these different things. Your issue is a little bit different. You're talking about judicial corruption with institutions that are captured. That's why tonight I told you that you have to hold the local certifiers accountable, because the judge does not have a say in whether or not that clerk says yes or no.
Now, this might be a controversial statement for some of you, but God is not in control. God is sovereign. But if God exercised his control right now, in this moment, in this season, you would not have the cheating that you're seeing, usurpers taking hold of offices. In God's infinite wisdom, he established Christ as the head of his church and believers as the body of Christ. We are the hands and feet. He has delegated control to you. So everything that we see that we hate, it's not God's fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. It's the body's fault. You don't like stolen elections? Don't blame God. You don't like abortion? Don't you dare blame God. We have not done our part. In our country, we've established a representative democracy, a republic, which means that you all comprise what is known as we the people. And to be we the people, you have to be a people of self-governance, meaning you have to be masters of all affairs in your lives. And there is a place where you get to participate in this experiment. Moses did not part the Red Sea. God did. But Moses was an instrument. And what did Moses do time in and time out? He showed up to this place called the gap. It's a place of interposition. It's a place where you will be hurt, where you will be slandered, where you will see lawfare if you've gotten the attention of the devil. And the devil's into the slave trade, folks. But you stand there. That's what Moses did. He knew that God had a picture of freedom, and slavery was incompatible with God's character. Pharaoh, on the other hand, believed in slavery. So Moses proclaimed to him, "Let my people go." And he had to say it more than once, because he had to keep going back and standing in front of Pharaoh. So I want you to envision yourselves as many Moseses showing up and confronting many Pharaohs. Now, the good news is that God doesn't need everyone, which leads me to Gideon. Gideon had tens of thousands of warriors. They were inspired. They were ready to do battle. God said, if they see all of the might of your warriors, they're going to forget to do something, which is acknowledge me. Give me glory. So let's have a test. I want you to see how people drink water. How do your warriors drink water? Bring them to the river. Do they get down and lap the water like a dog? Or do they keep their eyes up? Do they keep situational awareness? Do they bring the water to their mouth? I can work with that kind of warrior. How many made the cut? 300. It was enough. So here, in your backyard, almost imagine as if you're looking over a map, you've got your county. Election workers, canvassing boards, clerks that have broken their trust with you. You will surround them. Can you find 300 of God's warriors surrounding the 10 feckless usurpers to show up and proclaim truth, fight for your kids, fight for their voices, fight for your own voice, And don't do so in incremental fashion. Do not die on the altar of civility, but become an abolitionist and stay there. Expose them and see your power. 300 against 10, I like those odds. And now think of 3,000 counties, 300 deep in every county, surrounding their feckless politicians. That's your red wave. It's you. You are the red wave. You are the Red Sea. God won't part it the way that he did before because he has delegated his authority to the body of Christ to move. And when you move, you are unstoppable.
I hope a lot of people are shocked at where we are in the culture. Something insane is happening. Madness has been unleashed in our culture. How did this happen? How did this happen so suddenly? Well, the answer is it didn't happen so suddenly. It takes a long time to go from a few intellectuals believing some bad ideas to bringing those ideas into the culture more and more and more until they bear fruit. The parallels to how Germany got to where it was in the rise of the Nazis to where we are now is extremely dramatic. It's unavoidable. The excuses church leaders gave for their silence in the 30s are precisely the same excuses many church leaders are giving today. God expects his church to be the conscience of the state. He expects believers to stand against the madness. So if believers can be lulled into a sense of complacency or into a sense of fatalism, there's nothing I can do, we've abdicated that role, and that is exactly how we got where we are now.
They're trying to scare the public, scare Trump, and hopefully keep people away from the rallies. I think this is what they're actually trying to do. Because remember, they don't like people seeing these rallies. I mean, Trump just got approved. I think he's definitely going to have it at Madison Square Garden. 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden. Every day that passes, he's doing rally after rally and rally, and in every different city. And what do people see? They see hundreds of thousands of people at his rally. Kamala can't keep up with this. I mean, she could just pay people so much. She could just bust in the same people so many times. When before you know it, everyone's recognizing the same exact people. So this is becoming very, very tough for them. And they're trying to shut it down the best they possibly can. Just like they're trying to shut down the way the elections are run, and they're trying to cheat in the elections. Glenn Youngkin put this out and said, with less than 30 days until the election, the Biden-Harris Department of Justice is filing an unprecedented lawsuit against me and the Commonwealth of Virginia for appropriately enforcing a 2006 law to remove non-citizens from the voter rolls. Virginians and Americans will see this for exactly what it is, a desperate attempt to attack the legitimacy of the elections in the Commonwealth, the very crucible of American democracy. Trump, he put this out and said, one of the greatest examples of DOJ weaponization is the fact that they are suing Virginia to put all of the illegal voters, which were fully exposed and removed by the important work of Governor Glenn Youngkin, back on the voter rolls. Obviously, this was done so they can cheat on the elections. So sad. What has happened to our once great country? Absolutely. They are becoming desperate right now because they're looking at the polls, they're looking at the ballots, and they're saying, crap, this thing is too big to rig. We need more people on the voter rolls. Remember, Trump has set up roadblocks all over the place. They need the voter rolls bloated so they can use those names. And when you remove all these people, they don't have the names. I do believe this is why they've been hacking the Social Security and many other places to get Social Security numbers, to get names, so they could just use them and print them on the ballots. But you could see out in Pennsylvania, they're already letting us know that they're going to delay the elections. Clandestine put this out and said they're targeting their plan to steal PA. 60 Minutes takes us inside Philadelphia Voting Center, where election officials claim it takes 4 days to count mail-in ballots because they have to take them out of the envelope and unfold it. They think we are stupid. The entire episode from the 60 Minutes' textbook's predictive programming try to pre-bunk any future allegations and normalize the public to expect delays in the election. Why? Because they intend to cheat. They intend to delay the election so they can traffic ballots to the deep blue districts in PA, namely Philadelphia, and then steal the most important state in this election, which will likely decide the presidency. They're revealing their entire scheme. They absolutely are. And why are they so in a panic? Because the polls are coming out, and it shows that Republicans have about 268 electoral votes, and Democrats have about 251. Now, remember, these are the manipulated poll numbers. I do believe it's going to be a lot worse for the Ds, and they need time for the ballots. They need time to bring them in. It has nothing to do with counting. They need time to produce them. See, Trump is battling ballots. This is why I do believe he set up so many roadblocks to try to stop the ballot infiltration. The harder it is, the more time they're going to need. The more time they're going to need, it means that they're not going to be able to pull it off. Because if it takes 3 weeks, it's going to be ridiculous. So I do believe Trump set up all these roadblocks, had a lot of the laws change in the swing states, removed the bloated voter rolls to make it very, very difficult for them. This way, they can shift into manipulating the elections when Trump wins, saying, hey, I know Trump won, but the elections were manipulated. I do believe he's pushing them down this path. And you could see why the deep state players are so panicked in all of this and why they're going after Virginia, why they're trying to bring in as many illegals as possible. Because Kaneko the Great put this out and said, a CNN analyst reveals that for the first time since '84, more Americans identify as Republicans than Democrats. 2016, D+3, 2020, D+6, now R+1. Historically, the GOP wins when it's D+3. With independents leaning, the current margin is R+3. That should tell you everything you need to know. And this is why they're out there marching their Patriot Front group, which is really feds and other neo-Nazis. They're in their masks, carrying their flags, in their khaki pants. These are not Trump supporters. Trump supporters do not dress like this. They're preparing for what is coming. What is that? That is chaos and violence. And what's very interesting is that Trump was being interviewed by Maria Bartiromo, and she asked Trump, is there going to be violence? Because Biden has said there's going to be violence during the election. And Trump said, there's going to be no violence during the election, maybe coming from their side, but not from we the people. No, we're not going to do this. And he said, well, if there is, it looks like the National Guard or maybe even the military will handle this situation. Take a listen.
Chaos on election day?
No, I don't think so. Not from the side that votes for Trump.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on election day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists.
Right.
What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
And Lisa is pointing to Drop 34, and Drop 34 says the following. Public riots are being organized in serious numbers in an effort to prevent the arrest and capture of more senior public officials. On POTUS's order, a state of temporary military control will be actioned and special ops carried out. False leaks have been made to retain several within the confines of the United States to prevent extradition and special operator necessity. Rest assured, the safety and well-being of every man, woman, and child in this country is being exhausted in full. However, the atmosphere within the country will unfortunately be divided as so many have fallen for the corrupt and evil narrative that has long been broadcast. We will be initiating the Emergency Broadcast System, EMS, during this time in an effort to provide a direct message avoiding the fake news to all citizens. Organizations and or people that wish to do us harm during this time will be met with swift fury. Certain laws have been pre-lifted to provide our great military the necessary authority to handle and conduct these operations at home and abroad. Certain laws, huh? I guess there was an exception when we had the insurrection, because the exception for the Posse Capitalis Act is the insurrection. So it looks like certain laws have been lifted. And I do believe that there is going to be no civil war. There will be no war because Trump is going to usher in peace. It might look like it's approaching. We might be on the precipice. Yes, you might see riots, but there's going to be no civil war. I do believe the National Guard, the military, is going to clean everything up very, very quickly. Now, what's very interesting is Trump, he actually requested military aircraft and vehicles during the final weeks of the campaign because of the Iran threat. Now, I do believe Trump, the Patriots, are using Iran because, once again, if a foreign country is attacking this country, attacking the national infrastructure, we have come full circle from what happened in 2020 and 2022. And with the deep state telling the people that this is what's happening, people will accept it because people will see it. They're going to show you how it's done. I do believe the deep state's going to show you how it's done. And why did Trump request military aircraft and vehicles? Because once again, we know from a post that he'll be safely aboard Air Force One / Trump Force One. But General Mike Flynn said military air support is fighter escort with all sorts of technical capabilities to defend against short-range air defense rockets, absolutely necessary to given the real threat. There are other actions for military should take to support candidate for and former POTUS. Absolutely. And I do believe that this has been set up for a very long time. The military is already on his side. The military will already protect him. And again, this is an operation to go after the deep state players. I'm not saying you're going to see people in handcuffs being, dragged away, but I think we're going to be seeing the roundup of the foot soldiers. I do believe the arrest of all the top level people, that comes later. And Trump let everyone know, that from the beginning of this journey, I've been on a mission to rescue our nation from a failed and corrupt political establishment. He said, I will never quit. I will never bend. I will never break. I will never yield, not even the face of death itself. He's letting you know from the very, very beginning, it wasn't just about winning the election. It was about waking the people up, waking the people up so they could see the tyrannical government, everything that you're witnessing now, the open borders, the failing economy, the war that's now happening, the swapping of candidates, the editing and the fake news. This is to show you what has always been here. He actually said, listen, I'm opening the door. Do you see it now? Do you see what they've done to this country? It didn't happen yesterday. This happened a long time ago. I'm allowing you to see it. And then you make a decision. Do you like this world that they've created? Do you like what they're going to do to this world? If you don't, let's take back the country. If you don't, walk through the door. Come to my side. We can take back the country and go after all of these people that have been doing this, not just from 4 years ago, from a long time ago, because this just didn't pop up 4 years ago. You're just allowed to see it now. Before, you didn't want to see it. A lot of people didn't want to see it. A lot of people were asleep. Now you get to see it. Now you have to make a decision. Other people are going to be looking at that open door. Yes, the D's. And they're going to have to make a decision because we're going to hit the precipice. And once we hit the precipice, the people are going to have to decide, do I walk through this door because I don't like what I'm seeing? Or do I stick with this world and we go to war? And this country is destroyed. I think people are going to make that choice to walk through that door and be on the side of Trump. Because from what they see, I do believe they'll say enough is enough, even the D's. And I do believe this is why Trump is doing this. Yes, in the beginning it was for Republican independence. We're at the point where the D's must wake up. And I do believe they're going to. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
Let me just say that I would say the majority of the demonstration, while it was acting on orders from Moscow, was obviously handled by native Japanese communists. We really have to depend on the people within those countries themselves. Do they want to be free? Do they value freedom? The United States cannot do any more than, I think we can do several things. We can maintain a strong national defense second to none. Secondly, we can, within our own country, build the kind of society which makes people want to follow our example rather than the example of China and Russia. Thirdly, we can assist these people moving into their own economic development. In the final analysis, they have to believe in freedom themselves. I don't think you can sell freedom in a package. I think you have to believe in it and want to live under that kind of a system. We hope that they're going to choose that. And after all, the communists have not been successful in gaining control of any country in the last 14 years, really since the end of World War II, except by force, with the possible exception now of Cuba. We don't know what's going to happen in Cuba, but the people have rebelled against their control in every country. Poland, Hungary, East Germany, where they could, Tibet. I don't think people want to live under a communist system at all. Now, students are in a revolutionary frame of mind against the existing power. But in the long run, the best asset we have is the desire of people to be free.